Hello there, and welcome to Dev, the podcast about everyday video game developers and why they do what they do every day. I'm Alex Sulman, and I've been lucky enough to make video games for almost 3 decades. And during that time, I've become fascinated by the people that make the craft their day to day. Not just the creative directors or the executive producers that you normally hear about in the headlines, but many animators, engineers, artists, producers, designers, the ones whose work shapes our favourite games in ways you might not notice, but you would definitely miss. This podcast was inspired by an acceptance speech from Greg Miller during the 2015 Game Awards, where he took some time to thank someone from the credits of a game he'd just finished, not because he knew that person, but because he wanted to thank them for their contribution. That simple act of recognition really stuck with me, and in many ways this podcast is my way of doing the same. So each week I sit down with one of these everyday developers to discover their story. How they got where they are, what drives them, and what it's really like to make video games for a living. This isn't about scoops or scandals, it's a positive discussion about connection, craft, passion, and the personal cost, both positive and negative, of making video game development your livelihood. Please follow this podcast on your podcast player of choice and look out for it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. I also have a Patreon that's a virtual tip jar to keep the podcast ad-free, and at a slightly higher level allows you access to video versions of this podcast. So sit back and listen into these conversations, dev to dev.